Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So as I said at the beginning, I'm really happy with some of Joe Biden's choices to fill regulatory positions, to fill secretary spots. Thrilled with Marty Walsh at the Department of Labor. Happy with the person that he's put into education, and this guy that they've nominated and moved through the committee to be the head of the EPA, I think is really exciting. His name's Michael Regan. He was, he's recently the Secretary of North Carolina's Department of Environmental Quality. He'd worked at EPA for a whole long time. But his statement during his testimony before the Senate Environment and Public Works Committee, he said, "We will restore the role of science and transparency to EPA. We will support the dedicated and talented career officials. We will move with a sense of urgency on climate change, and we will stand up for environmental justice and equity. And we will do that in a collaborative manner in partnership with state and local government." I like that because it's a huge departure from the last guy who was like, hey, let's see what we can pollute, and let's see how we can then bury it. So for me, accountability, transparency, and people who actually, heaven forbid, actually believe in government that can actually do something. Exciting times. And here to share some thoughts on, well, the prospect of Michael Regan being confirmed. He got through the House Senate committee. Lindsey Graham actually voted for him. So I think there's a good chance. I've asked Gary Morton to come back and talk with us. Gary's the president of AFGE Council 238, the American Federation of Government Employees. Gary, thanks for taking time for us.
Thank you, Rick. It's a pleasure to be back. I thank you for giving me the opportunity. Also, before we get started, I want to say my heart and prayers goes out to the folks in Texas and out in the Midwest, anyone suffering under the pandemic and also the storm. Praying for them, and country's going to come together to help them. Getting back to the EPA, I was very excited to hear that. It's one thing to hear it. I can say under the last 4 years, the Trump administration had made no bones about assaulting the EPA, getting rid of the employees, regulatory rollbacks. So it's finally good to hear somebody talk about letting the employees do the job that they were hired to do, protect human health and the environment for the American people.
No, I mean, across the agencies, I'm going, we can get the patronage hires out and we can bring in people who actually believe in doing their job. So the question I have for you, and we've had these conversations over the last couple of years as people have fled for other industries, the work environment toxic. Do you see people coming back to the EPA now that you have leadership who's going to want their input and value their experience?
I'm hoping so. The proof will be in the pudding because it has to happen. We can't undergo another 4 years of regulatory rollbacks, assaults against the employees. That's one of the reasons why some of the people left, and just the inability to do their jobs. So we need to restore, renew, and revive. And how we do that is first of all, working with Congress and the unions to make sure that we don't have to go through what we did. We being the American public, first of all, and also the EPA employees, and all federal employees were assaulted by the executive order. So hopefully they can restore faith that they want us to protect the environment and protect human health. Because this last administration did everything it could to crush the employees of the EPA.
No, and since you brought that up, one of the first things that Joe Biden did as president was to roll back those executive orders that Trump had placed to target your union specifically, the American Federation of Government Employees, which, I've been saying, Joe Biden to this point, and he hasn't even been president a month, has been the most pro-worker president of my lifetime.
Amen. I'm very thankful to hear that. And it's such a breath of fresh air because we were on a defensive. We had our shields up. It's like Spartans, just arrows coming every day, attack. What did they say? Drain the swamp. Yet they filled them with political appointees who did not desire to protect human health and the environment. They removed climate change, couldn't mention it, anything dealing with science. So that's why we have to change the culture at EPA, not only to use science for what it's worth and how it should be used, but also to respect the employees and what they bring to the table.
Now, you brought up climate change. I look at what's happening in Texas right now, the fact that, we've got one of the largest states in our country with millions of people without power. We've had a number of people who have died because of it. We can't drink the water now without it being boiled. We're in this moment where the energy producing state is crippled, and I would argue it's a bunch of reasons. Part of it is our defiance to do anything about climate change, and also the fact that reality is what it is. We've given over the industries, our utilities, to private interest, moneyed interest, and it's all about the money at the end of the day.
Well, you hit the nail on the head, and I feel embarrassed because I really didn't see it as strong until the Trump administration came in. There was always some type of balance between economics, science, human health, politics, but that all went out the window the last 4 years. And when you purposely enforce rules and change laws that don't protect the human health and the environment, don't allow the employees to protect the human health and the environment, and yet you have, don't want to get political, but you have a condoning of these activities by a number of leaders. What does that say of what they think about the people?
No, you're absolutely right. And I want to get back to the EPA for a second, because that's where your expertise is. A lot of the reports that we're reading coming out right now are, we don't know how bad things are. As the reporting has come out, we've had nothing but lobbyists and corporate people in charge of EPA decisions for these last 4 years. And as a guest told me one time, think about what we know, think about what we can prove, and then think of all the things we don't know. And they're saying the EPA is going to be one of these places that's going to be digging out from the last 4 years, probably for decades. Do you agree with that assessment?
Totally. Because when I joined the agency and I left the Internal Revenue Service, I came to work for an agency that protected human health and the environment, that did its charge, but also had the mandate from the people. And over the past 4 years, we've been made to be scapegoats. They took away our staffing. It's very important that we get the staffing back. Also, a fair workplace environment for the employees. We have to restore trust, receive trust from the EPA leadership so that they trust the employees, and the employees also trust the leadership. Because, you put a mouse in charge of the cheese, and his sole purpose was to gut the agency, roll back the regulations, create morale issues, buy out. They dropped us from 18,000 to a little bit over 12,000. So we need staffing. We need renewal of the purpose of EPA by Congress. The funding and the staffing is very important.
No, and this is one of those moments, Gary, where I'm someone who believes that I don't want to return to the days of patronage. And I was talking about this all during the Trump years, that Trump wanted absolute loyalists to him and to his ideology, and filled every agency he could with corporate stooges, in my view. I want to go back to a point where we get educated people who dedicate their careers and their lives to doing a task, and they don't care who's in the White House. Their task is what it is. I want boring bureaucrats to do the oversight of keeping our environment healthy and safe, keeping our air and our water safe to drink and breathe, keeping our workplaces safe. I want boring bureaucrats. I don't want to have these political fights over who's going to make sure that, name the the regulation. It just seems like I want to go back to some bit of sanity. And I'm hoping Joe Biden's this guy. And to this point, we're only a month in. I'm happy with what he's done.
Well, I'm pleased with what we're hearing. The union, we have been fighting, and thank you for giving us an opportunity to restore the EPA back. Also, to fight for the people's rights, fight for the employees' rights. So I'm hoping that the sanity can come in. We want to work collaboratively, we being AFGE, representing the employees. And some of these employees are the same people that you're in the supermarket with, that play on your son's team or with your daughter's ballet. So we all want America to have a stake in this and all do it together. So you got to get rid of the political employees. And if I might say, it was a civil war there because the fear and intimidation on the career employees played a great part in the last 4 years.
Well, walk me through some of that, because I think over the next couple of years, we're going to find out just how bad things were as we start pulling back the curtain and examining how hostile the work environment is. Because I've heard this story from a number of people. In fact, I've invited a number of your members to come on this program and share their experiences. And they were all terrified to do it because they didn't want the target on their back. They didn't want the administration coming after them, but they were sending me, hey, this is what's going on. And so, how bad was it?
It was very bad. And the thing about it, a lot of things happened before you even knew it. One of the, for lack of a better term, slick ways is to remove the checks and balances. So you have decisions made in a vacuum. When I first started the EPA, you had the program, which I worked in. We did the inspections. We recommended charges. We also had the upper management, but you had concurrence by the attorneys on the job. And during this administration, they were removed from the concurrence. So they no longer had the ability to sign off on and approve penalties, consent orders. They could only be consulted. And Rick, when you're consulted, I consult you, but I do what I want to do. It's nice if you agree with me, but there was no authority. The checks and balances have to be put back in. And when you put political pressure, all of a sudden you have program employees of a GS 9, 11 nature talking about penalties in front of the RAs. There were so many layers of management put in where everyone was watching their back. So many more meetings. They stopped us from doing the job by just filling us with administrative functions.
So I love that consulted angle, because when someone says you're being consulted, you're just being told this is how it is, like it or not, and be glad that we told you. So I guess last line of questioning in this, because you're obviously the guy there. You know what's going on the ground. How bad. Again, I go back to how bad was it? How much worse off are we? I know you guys do a lot of inspections. How much did that go down? How much more? I guess the simple question is, how much more polluted are we as a nation?
Well, Rick, I retired in November of 2019. So although I'm still president, I'm in the fight. I'm not in the office. I can say, based on the regulatory rollbacks, AFGE in our issue papers, we showed enforcement going down over 20% just in the first 2 years of the Trump administration. Criminal enforcement's dropping. Any type of regulatory enforcement was decreased or written away. When I first started, I was in the underground storage tank department, and they had to split up our group because we were only allowed to put 75% of our time into the underground storage tanks. So we have to get a mandate from Congress and also from up above. And that's where Mr. Regan comes in. He has to enforce the regulations, give us a mandate us being the employees to do what they have to do to protect the employees, protect human health and the environment, not to protect the environment, not to hear from the lobbyists, not to cater to big business. Got to get back to basics of government for the people.
Yeah. Do you have confidence in this guy? Do you know much about him?
No, I'm hearing all the good things, and I'm going to pray. And before I say anything like negative or whatever, we're going to give these people an opportunity, and we owe them that. They fought up against a mighty storm, and they won the election by stating they wanted to go back to government. So we have to give them a time. They're not in place yet, but all the signs are yes, because we suffered, our employees, we were under a unilateral imposition of a contract. And hopefully we can get steps to just create a better workplace for not only EPA, but all federal employees.
No, I'm right there with you, and go back to boring old government, and heaven forbid people who actually believe in what they do. I said earlier you had Rick Perry, who George Bush put in charge of the Department of Energy, and that was one of the agencies he wanted to destroy. So the fact that he was you can't make this stuff up. So for me, having people who believe in the charge that they're given and the work that they're doing, I think is a major step forward.
Yes, it is. And already, we can say happy days are here again because a cloud is over the agency. It's like a truce was declared because of the fear that came down from the top onto the employees. We say ding dong, the witch is dead. So, we just are very happy to have a better environment. But now it's up to this administration to restore the EPA.
Yeah, and I've got good hope for this guy. I looked at his record. Young guy, seems to be fairly ambitious. Seems to get it. I've got great hope for him.
I do too, and I haven't heard anything negative. And as I stated in the beginning of the interview, when you have the people on top backing you, wanting to do the mission of the agency, wanting to restore the faith and transparency, wanting to create working conditions that are good for the employees, we have no place to go but up, because the last 4 years we were under a hammer.
There you go. Gary, I appreciate the time. Great talking to you, my friend.
Anytime, Rick. God bless you, and thank you so much.
You as well. Our good friend Gary Morton, president of AFGE Council 238. I'm like him. I'm happy to see it. Love to hear your thoughts. You can email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Quick break. Right back. Stick around.
Remembering that united we bargain, divided we beg. Rick Smith.